Well, good morning, or good afternoon, or good evening, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today for our live webinar on three power moves that are going to help you crush Microsoft Teams performance challenges. I'm Eric Lanask. I'm Group Editorial Director at TMC, and I'm excited to be introducing and kicking off today's live session. Hopefully, you're all seeing our title slide on your screens. Solve Microsoft Teams performance troubles before they hit your inbox. Um, so, you know, why is this such an important topic? Why are we taking time to discuss it? I guess it really starts with the fact that Teams has become the default collaboration hub for so many enterprises. Of course, it sits at the front door of the entire 365 ecosystem and has such tight integration with the entire Microsoft portfolio that so many enterprises leverage heavily. And that cohesion reduces all sorts of app switching and governance sprawl, and really allows IT to enforce access and other requirements and security baselines without the need to kind of stitch together a variety of different vendor stacks. I can tell you from my own personal experience that since we came out of the pandemic, the overwhelming majority of companies that I have interactions with have pivoted to Teams from whatever collaboration platforms they had quickly adopted, really out of necessity back in 2020. I mean, it's not even close, to be honest. Here's the other thing I can tell you. It doesn't come without its challenges. Far more often than I'd expect, I do hear people talking about a wide range of quality issues that they experience during their interactions. Audio might be choppy, their screen shares might freeze, they might drop connections, their video might be unstable or freezing. Again, I think you all know what that looks like and how it impacts the overall experience of your collaboration exercises. Sometimes, infrequently though, they resolve themselves. A lot of the time, I see users trying to relaunch their apps or rebooting their laptops, and all of that takes time. Sometimes they just decide to turn off video, for instance, because the degradation causes a distraction. I've even seen people have to ask somebody else to pull up a document and do a screen share because theirs isn't working properly. Again, you get the picture. It's not always rosy when it comes to the user experience. And when these things happen, everybody on the call is impacted. It's not just the one user who's having the problems. It's really frustrating and it's annoying, and it extends meeting times. And I've even seen situations where it's gotten so bad that meetings have had to be rescheduled. It's not necessary. And yes, Microsoft does have some native quality monitoring tools, and certainly not to knock them, because they generally do what they're supposed to. They don't see the entire end-to-end experience. They're only capable of seeing what's happening within Microsoft's own networks. And the truth is, they weren't really meant to diagnose things like ISP congestion or trunk issues or failing Wi-Fi hops in users' home offices. And that boundary really matters, because today's modern workforce relies on so many of these different components that Microsoft doesn't own. The ISPs, the enterprise networks, the SBCs, the SIP trunks, third-party room devices, and the list goes on and on. And I think one of the things that makes it even more challenging for IT teams is the fact that maybe half of issues are actually reported through IT tickets or Rate My Call from Microsoft. And I think that's why so many businesses have really started looking at third-party proactive monitoring tools that they can use in conjunction with Microsoft's native tools to ensure a better, more consistent, reliable user experience. And that's what today's session is all about, to help explain what that looks like, how to achieve the experiences everybody expects. And to do that, I'm joined by two colleagues at Martello, Richard Ashby and Derek Burke. Richard and Derek, welcome. Thank you so much for being here. If I could ask you to please take a moment just to introduce yourselves, say hello to the folks in our audience.
Well, thank you, Eric, and it's great to be here. It's a lovely opportunity. I'm looking forward to a very interactive session here today. Just for information, I'm the Senior Pre-Sales Engineer at Martello, based out in Europe, and obviously work very closely with my colleague, Derek.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. Derek Burke, thanks, Eric, as well. Like Richard, I'm over here at Martello, I'm a technical account manager, primarily focused in North and South America, although I help cover the rest of the planet as well, much like Richard does. We try to overlap as much as humanly possible.
Excellent. Thank you both. Richard and Derek, as you might expect, are the two experts who are going to help us understand how to get to those positive, consistent, reliable experiences within your team's environment. And they're going to do it by showing you how you can leverage Vantage DX to get ahead of Microsoft Teams and 365 performance issues. I'm really excited about our format and having them actually walk through a couple of real world scenarios that will show some of the gaps that exist in native Microsoft tools when it comes to managing that performance and user experience. And that's whether you're doing it for your enterprise users or if you're an MSP joining us, for your customers. Derek and Richard are going to show you how you can proactively detect problems before they impact users, how to eliminate those visibility gaps so you can troubleshoot faster, and how to gain insights that allow you to continuously improve the user experience. Like I said, I really love our format today, and as we troubleshoot these very common scenarios, we're going to do it with a side-by-side comparison. Derek is going to use only native Microsoft tools, showing the typical steps IT teams need to go through to resolve issues. Richard, on the other hand, is going to show what Vantage DX can offer, how it can be used to not only streamline the resolution process, but really get in front of it. Now, before we start, a couple of program notes, if you will. If you have any questions, please, I encourage you, use the Q&A feature at on your screens to submit your questions to us anytime as they come up during our sessions. We're going to cover as many of them as we can at the end of our time today. If you need to revisit any part of today's session, if you have additional questions or would like more information from the Martello team, contact information as well as details on accessing the on-demand version of today's session will be sent to you tomorrow. Now, before we get into our two real-world scenarios, I'd love to ask you all one question to help get our conversation started. And so Derek and Richard can maybe frame some of their commentary and insights better and tailor them a little more to exactly who's in our audience. More specifically, what we'd like to hear from you is, where are your biggest Microsoft Teams challenges? And in advance, I want to thank you for taking just a moment for answering this one poll question for us. Hopefully that's popped up for you. Again, what are your top Microsoft Teams challenges? My team is struggling with unreliable meeting performance. We're always firefighting Teams problems. Teams meeting rooms aren't performing like we expected. I'm dealing with recurring Teams phone quality issues. Or troubleshooting 365 and Teams issues just takes too long. Yeah, we'll give you a few moments to respond to this. Richard and Derek, while we wait for our audience to give us their insights, I feel like this is kind of a, this could go any way. Any one of these could be issues. In fact, I wouldn't surprise me to see folks answering all five.
I would agree with you there, Eric. I think it's a fairly widespread option here. I think individuals, depending on their priorities in their company, focus on different issues. So I'm pretty sure that we will get some fairly even results in here. But if I was to put some money on it, I think probably it's the time to actually not necessarily fix the issues, but actually to discover and understand the issues even before you try and fix them.
Thanks, Richard. Derek, any additional thoughts on what we might expect while we give our audience just a couple more moments to respond?
Yeah, thanks, Eric. You know, from my personal experience, what I've been hearing the most from the user communities is people struggling with Teams meetings rooms specifically. And the reason for that obviously is those have the highest impact, right? When you consider that you're in a meeting, you might have 5, 10 people that are, outside the organization that are in on that call. And when you're experiencing problems, that's a major issue. It's something that we see happening all the time. And the interesting thing that I always like to point out is, we always hear that the meetings rooms are probably the biggest issue that people complain about. But the thing that all the IT administrators that I talk to forget is that 80% of your team calling, right? So your user peer-to-peer calls or peer-to-trunk calls, when those are poor, 80% of those are not reported. Right, that's just kind of an industry standard. People ignore those calls, like you were saying. They reboot their machine. They just say, "Oh, it's just a bad link," so they hang up and reconnect. Right, so it's definitely it's an issue across the board. But the one that people, the squeaky wheel, for the lack of a better phrase, is probably the meeting rooms, in my opinion.
Well, hopefully everybody's seeing what our audience told us, and Richard, you were spot on. The timing is the biggest issue according to our audience. So I don't, from that perspective, Richard, I'm sure you're not surprised. Derek, any surprises in there? Meeting rooms was a little bit lower on the list than what you're hearing.
Yeah, I mean, again, the troubleshooting piece always takes the longest time. So yeah, that completely makes sense. So
At the end of the day, regardless of what are the biggest issues for companies, what the poll shows is that there's a range of issues that IT teams are dealing with, that users are experiencing, and that the headaches are real. So the good news for you and our audience, we're about to actually put some of these tools to the test in real world scenarios to find out who comes out on top. So let's, why don't we get right into our first scenario, which really revolves around a VIP's board meeting that kind of goes sideways. So in this first scenario, let's say your executive has been in a board meeting that was taking place over Teams, and it didn't go well. There were way too many audio and or video issues, and instead of filing a ticket or rating the call as poor, that executive just marches down to Derek's office to get an immediate answer as to what went wrong. So Derek, walk us through what happens.
yeah, thanks, Eric. So just as a reminder, I'm running through this from a Microsoft administrator perspective, right? I mean, that's kind of really where I'm focusing on. And if you see me looking to the left all the time, it's because I have dual monitors, and I just want to make people aware of that. So as you can see, Kate experienced a bad call. She's my executive, and she was in a meeting. It did not go well, right? There were audio problems, maybe there were problems uploading a file, whatever the case may be. And she's coming to me as the Microsoft admin. So normally my first place that I would start looking would probably be inside the Teams admin center, which is what I have up right now. And the first thing I'd have to do is look for Kate. So, normally I'd go into users, I'd go into manage users, and then I'd have to search for Kate. Once I find Kate, I could select Kate. And this is going to give me an overview of Kate Mills and all the call quality that she's had over the last 7 days. So here you can see a summary of the call quality. And I have to go then into meetings and calls because she was in a meeting. And then it would list any that are here, and I can click on this to get a summary of the meeting that had actually just taken place. Now, again, here I have summary information where I can see the date that it happened, the audio call quality. And if I scroll down a little bit, I can see all the users that were in the call, and I can see what their experience was, whether it was, good, bad, anything like that. And obviously we can see that Kate had a poor experience the entire time. One of the things that I noticed as, working inside the Teams admin center is, like, if that meeting just ended and Kate came right down and was asking for, what was the root cause? Why was I having such a bad meeting? It's going to take Microsoft about 15 minutes to get me this data, right? I mean, it's just kind of the timing that Microsoft has on getting information out into their admin center or even any of their platforms. So, that's one of the struggles that you deal with as a Teams admin. If I did have, if I had purchased Power BI, I could go into Power BI and do a little bit more digging. So as an example, as I come into here and I look at the Power BI, now I'm in another tab, I'm in another application basically. I have, the Power BI template, and I'd want to take a look and see what's going on from an audio perspective. And I can drill into this a little bit, and I can see, like some regions were experiencing some problems. It's giving me a lot of good summary data here, and I can go even a little bit further and get a little bit more information, and it might point me towards, an ISP having a problem or an ISP subnet that's having a problem. In this particular case, it's an ISP that's injecting latency into the call. And from here, I'd have to leave Microsoft and start going into like any kind of external network testing applications that I may have. Like maybe my router has, a diagnostics tool that I could get into, because Microsoft's not going to be able to give me that information, right? And at this point, I'm really, just kind of trying to piece together where the problem actually lies, right? I'm going to be looking at my internal tools to see what happened on my network, see if the problem was there. Okay, it's not there. Now I have to start looking to see if Microsoft's reported any outages or any problems on their end. And if I don't see anything there while I'm waiting for them to write up any event that may have actually happened, then I'm sitting there and I'm trying to figure out what happened between my demarcation point and the Microsoft network. So, it's a lot of, it's a multi-tool manual correlation exercise. It's cumbersome. It's very reactive. And users basically have to start complaining before I even know that there's an issue going on.
Great. Thanks, Derek. So there's a ton of data that you're showing us right here, but you've made it clear that it's fragmented. It looks fragmented, and insights are difficult to extract because of the need, like as you talked about, the need to manually correlate across tools. What can you tell us about that?
Yeah, I mean, that's really what it is. I always like to give the analogy of, it's like basically you have a bowl of spaghetti and you're trying to reattach two pieces, right? Because each little string of information that you have, they're not necessarily connected to each other. You could end up, chasing down a problem that isn't related to the actual issue, and it can be very frustrating. And that's where, like in the poll that we had at the beginning, where it shows, the amount of time it takes to find the problem, that's exactly what people are dealing with on a day-to-day basis. Definitely behind the eight ball, right?
Absolutely, and that's both challenging and frustrating for everybody. Thanks, Derek. Richard, let me turn over to you now, and just as a reminder for the folks in our audience, Richard is going to be using Vantage DX to try to get ahead of some of these problems before users are impacted.
Yeah, thanks, Eric. And actually, Derek stole the words out of my mouth. And obviously, the reason I gave that it takes so long to fix things or discover things is why I raised it at the top of the list. I'm going to take, as you said, a different approach. We're going to look at Vantage DX. The first thing we do is take the user out of the equation. I think Derek mentioned earlier that less than 20% of people actually report issues. So people are suffering, they're getting frustrated, meetings are getting delayed because people can't join at that time. So we take the onus away from the end user and we put it into proactivity. And that proactivity allows us to test the application every 5 minutes, 24 hours a day. It allows us to discover the network path, to evaluate the network path. And we can wrap that together in notifications or alerts. And this is a very typical alert that we've got here. And the first thing I should say is that A, we're not focused on a specific destination, or we could be, and B, we could focus on an individual or a group of individuals. So the alerts are extremely flexible. If I look at this, the top part of this alert is telling me through our proactive testing, remember every 5 minutes, we have discovered that it's taking it's exceeding the acceptable limits for connecting to Microsoft Teams. So real users would actually be sitting there waiting for Teams to connect rather than actually being able to use Teams. The second part of the alert at the bottom is actually saying, well, we've discovered a problem in that connection between our robot location in Ottawa. We are seeing that there is latency introduced in that connection path, which obviously is affecting the connection time. But should you establish a call, you're going to have issues with problems of the screen. Just one moment. Can you still see my screen?
Yes.
I seem to have lost my monitor. Are you just seeing my screen, Derek? Nothing else?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So apologies for that. So what we're seeing here, as I say, is the
your
fact
camera's
that,
looking at your tummy now.
Okay, sorry, sir. I've just, for some reason, my one screen has gone black, which is most inconvenient. I don't understand why, but let's carry on. So as I say, we're seeing the fact that we've got latency, which of course will introduce clip conversation, people are talking over each other. If I move on from that and look at what the underlying information we're taking into consideration, here we're looking at the Ottawa location, and if I scroll down, I'm actually seeing the input from that is driving those alerts. This line graph is the results of our proactive testing. In this case, we're looking at the Teams application. We're discovering, for example, how long is it taking to connect, how long is it taking to upload a message, etc. And of course, if we get a spike in there, then we are instantly alerting, as you saw from that alert. Above, I have the results of the network path analysis. And if I click on that, I can see that the path I've got is being discovered. Here's our robot in Ottawa. We're seeing that latency is being introduced at this particular hop. On the right, I can see actually what the problem is. So of course, this gives us the evidence to raise a ticket. And because we want to ensure that we maintain our end users' high level experience, we could perhaps change the routing whilst the issue is being resolved. But I said at the beginning, we don't just need to focus on locations, we could also focus on individual users or groups of users. Once again, I can instantly see my Kate Mills down below here. I could go across, I can look at a specific dashboard, looking at my executives. I've got Kay Mills and Chris Weston here. I can see their performance, whether they're connecting from the office, what type of connection, Wi-Fi, wired, etc., which ISPs they're connecting with. I can information about Teams phone calling. So a wealth of information, including good, poor, and failed calls, and in addition, the reason why they're failing, and of course, some network parameters around what we're recording on that. But looking at this information is very valuable, but our approach is to discover issues and tell you when you've got issues. So our boards, our RAG status boards, allow you to construct notifications that are, shall we say, directly monitoring what you want to do as a MSP for your customers or as an individual customer, focusing on whether you want to track your Copilot performance, whether you want to look at groups of executive, Teams phone, even items, for example, like session border controllers. And if I drill into one particular alert I've got, I can actually look at this alert and I can see that I've got specific information about an individual group of users, for example, executives or there. So you can see in a nutshell that our approach is proactive. It allows you to discover issues proactively, and obviously with the use of the network path analysis, you'll be able to drill down and look at the individual issues or go straight to the root cause.
Wow, that's amazing. That's amazing, Richard. Thank you. So you know, it's very cool. You can see every hop, whether you know from the home Wi-Fi router, the office infrastructure, to the ISP, all the way into the team service, and really pinpoint exactly where individual issues lie for groups or for individual teams. That's very cool, Richard. Talk a little bit about, you know, I understand Microsoft has introduced some synthetic testing capabilities on its own recently. How does that compare to what Vantage DX does?
I mean, yeah, and it's certainly a hot topic at the moment. So indeed, Microsoft have introduced some what they call silent testing. Looking at that, I think the big differences are that with us, we have obviously got a lot of experience in this area. We can offer proactive testing across all the 365 applications. We're not limited to Teams. We can test Teams phone proactively, so originating calls in the Teams world out to the PSTN world. Very useful if you, for example, have call centers and you want to ensure that service is maintained. All the other 365 applications, Copilot, OneDrive, etc. The other thing is that we focus on the strategic locations. We are looking at groups of users as well as individual users. So, for example, if you are proactive testing, we would recommend putting the robot in a strategic location. Let's say your key meeting rooms, concentration of executives, concentrations of users, as opposed to, and we test irrespective of whether users are active or inactive. I think there is some obvious items we've identified with Microsoft. It's an individual user base. You have to, the user has to be inactive. I mean, if you're on an executive user, how often are they inactive? So you're missing out there. And last but not least, there is the silent testing is limited to users with a premium license. So again, it's an additional cost that is incurred to be able to test from those specific users. So in a nutshell, our proactive testing is covering a far wider base and irrespective of whether users are active or inactive.
Yeah, and just to add on to that very briefly, you know, one of the other things that on the Microsoft side that can be a bit of a challenge is that if you want to see the results of that passive testing, you have to have a Power BI license. That is a requirement on the Microsoft side.
Excellent. Thank you both. And I think that, Richard, the last point you made about the Teams premium licensing is actually an important one, because the data that I've seen says that somewhere maybe around 1% of Teams users actually have premium licenses. So the number of folks that actually have access to those additional capabilities and features is very, very small, certainly compared to the number of overall Teams users. But this has all been very, very nice to see. Awesome stuff. And now we've seen a little bit about how Vantage DX does help proactively catch issues and isolate root causes, and even in many cases before there's a real impact on the user experience. I do want to move on to our second scenario now, and give Richard and Derek a chance to show what happens when there's been a Microsoft outage. We know that happens. We know it impacts users everywhere. Some of them are smaller, some of them are bigger, some are localized, regional, some of them are global. Regardless of what those actually are, they have an impact. And Richard and Derek are going to show how Vantage DX provides an early warning before Microsoft maybe even informs their customers that there is a problem with their service. So Richard, I'm again going to hand it over to you now to let you take us away.
Okay, perfect, Derek. So let me just go to the next screen. Actually, I'm just wondering, Derek, do you have this? I seem to be. sod's law, isn't it? In the middle of a broadcast, my machine
Yeah,
is.
of course. That's Murphy.
Yeah. I wonder if you could share your screen, Derek, please.
Yeah, let me take a look here. Just calling it up, just bear with me. Talk amongst yourselves, folks. Have any calls come in? Or any questions, I should say?
No, but that's a great reminder to our audience. If you do have questions, please do get them into us. While Derek's looking for that, you know, Richard, how often do incidents come up with Teams experiences?
Oh, I would say probably on a daily basis, issues can come up. It's the interesting question about that is that the issues exist, but it's not necessarily the issues are visible to people. So the occurrences around Teams rooms, about Teams phone and that, I think most people use the obvious disconnect, reconnect, reboot scenario. So the problems exist, but the impact is on the individual, the frustration, the fact that people are delayed in meeting, they're not necessarily reporting these issues. So again, back to Derek's valuable point at the beginning is the fact that you've got less than 20% of people reporting, but issues are still happening out there.
Yeah, can you guys see my screen now?
It can indeed, yes.
Yes.
Okay. So, you know, to go on with what Richard was saying, you know, Richard, do we have, is this the screen that we want it to be on? Where do we want to be?
I would like to be on the one that is showing the alert, the outage alert.
Yeah, this is where I was experiencing issues. Yeah. Not here, because this is the Microsoft one. Technical glitch, of course. This literally was working this morning. So Richard, how about, can you talk to a bit about the alerts that we have?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, let's not just waste time on this. So
yeah, exactly.
Apologies to the audience while we'll get this sorted out. But let's talk about how our approach. We've already looked at the robot actions that are performed. So as I said, we're testing every 5 minutes to understand the performance of Teams and that. We're also, one of our AI detection functionalities is to understand certain codes that Microsoft provide. When that AI detection steps in, it identifies that, then we immediately flag a Microsoft outage. So that can come via email, it will come on the screen. It will, in fact, Derek is now showing us the picture of that. This is the typical outage. It's not only identifying that at 11:15 Eastern, it detected a problem from Paris, Ottawa, and Nice. So it's actually pinpointing what the issue is. The great thing about this is that we see it ourselves, our customers consistently see it themselves, and we will notify within 10 to 15 minutes. Typically, we see Microsoft could take an hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours before they post any information about this. And if you just go to the next screen, Derek, if you don't mind, we just have a picture here, just shows, if you scroll down, you can see the spikes that we're detecting at this outage point. And again, the nice thing about this, or the critical thing about this, is it's giving you information in near real time. It's giving you back control. You're able to inform your user base. Maybe you're using a secondary communication or collaboration tool. You could swap to that. And least but not last, we tell you when the outage is over. So again, you're being provided by this information in real time to allow you to actually manage and, of course, maintain the highest level of experience to your end users. Derek, I think that is very quick and easy to do in Vantage DX. I'm going to throw the ball back to you now and see how you would do that from the Microsoft point of view.
Yeah, thanks, Richard. So next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to hop over into the Microsoft Admin Center, right, the O365 Admin Center. And I'd want to go into Health and Services, right, and then take a look at Service Health. And now I can actually see that there are some alarms that have happened, right? So we can see here that, you know, there was a service that was negatively affected. You know, it happened at 12:12 Eastern time, about an hour after Vantage DX flagged it. You know, that proactive monitoring that we do on the DX side is definitely a lot quicker at identifying problems before Microsoft starts doing any kind of write-up to give you, you know, a general summary. You know, the challenge you run into, right, is it's exactly that. It's just a summary. It's high level. You know, and without Vantage DX, you're going to spend that hour just troubleshooting, you know, your own network, or, you know, possibly calling Microsoft and waiting on hold for an hour to find out that, oh yeah, we're actually having a problem ourselves, right? And Microsoft saying that, you know, but you'd be spinning your wheels on your side, you know, troubleshooting your own network, looking at the PC, looking at, you know, the meeting rooms kit, whatever happens to be, and just without ever realizing that the problem is happening on the Microsoft side, because Microsoft is very slow in reporting, you know, any kind of problems that they're experiencing.
That's great information, Derek. So, you know, so clearly Vantage DX, what we've seen over the past few minutes here is that Vantage DX helps avoid wasted time chasing a problem that isn't yours, whether you're the enterprise IT team or whether you're the managed services provider, to fix, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah, completely.
Richard, what does that then mean for you know, for you as that whether you're the MSP or whether you're the IT team, IT manager, IT leader?
I think this simply comes down to early knowledge. Information is king on this. Many organizations, critical organizations, have some form of standby that they can use to ensure their communication is not impacted. If you're unfortunate enough not to have a standby, of course you have the information to inform your users proactively that there is an issue. You know it's a Microsoft issue, and basically allowing people to, shall we say, continue to perform without getting frustrated because they're trying every 10 seconds. I need to do this, I need to log into Teams. And of course, while you're being distracted from that, you're not actually being able to perform your new normal duties. So early notification takes away ambiguity, gives you back control, and obviously whether you're an IT team or whether you're an MSP, you are providing information to your users.
Thanks, Richard. And obviously that's in addition to helping solve some of these user experience issues, you know, letting them know in advance that they may experience problems, or you know, if there's a Microsoft outage, that they will absolutely be experiencing issues. You know, while that part may be frustrating to users, I think it's a lot less frustrating than having to go through the process and then finding out that, oh man, I can't access my Teams or my other tools. So you know, super helpful in doing that. You know, I think what we've seen here from Richard and Derek is that you know, this is a very tangible view of what Vantage DX offers, its value, the advantages it can give the internal IT teams and MSPs alike, in terms of how to effectively and most importantly proactively manage the Microsoft Teams user experiences across their enterprise, or for MSPs across their customer bases. if you guys are ready, let's get to some questions here. Again, if we've got a few questions coming in, if you have questions, you haven't submitted them, now is the time to do that. And I promise if we don't have time to get to all of your questions during our live sessions, they'll all be archived. And I know that the team at Martello will get to any additional questions after today's event. I promise you they will not go unanswered. You know, in terms of getting corporate leadership to understand, you know, really the impact of proactive monitoring, and Richard, I'm going to start with you here. You know, do you have any data that you know, IT leaders can show their corporate executives to prove the impact, the value of proactive monitoring?
Yeah, absolutely. We actually commissioned the development of a ROI model from a UC expert, Kevin Keeler. I mean, it's available and we're more than happy to share that with anyone. But from this third-party modeling, it shows that we're talking about approximately 60% of incidents could be eliminated from proactive monitoring. I mean, basically you fix them before users are impacted. And this can also reduce your troubleshooting time by around 50% of the rest of the instance. So, you know, there's some big numbers in there, but even when we tailor this model to companies with their own inputs, you can see, you know, you can quantify the savings, the operational savings and business benefits from that. And, you know, even if you take the product yourself, and we've had a very brief look at it today, the dashboards and reporting can show how we can identify performance issues, how we can, you know, pinpoint directly the root cause. What we didn't look at is, of course, we've got SLAs you can put into place so you can track the performance on a day-by-day, hour-by-hour basis. And of course, these SLAs are a very valuable way of demonstrating the ongoing performance, but also from a MSP or even an IT team's point of view, how they are improving the performance for the customers.
Thanks, Richard. Derek, let me jump over to you. You know, it's great that you know, to be aware of you know, how Vantage DX helps, how it helps support positive, consistent user experiences. When you've got when issues arise, when Vantage DX raises problems, how does it notify IT teams, MSPs? You know, does Vantage DX integrate with other alerting or ticketing systems? I guess is really what I'm getting at.
Yeah, thanks, Art. That's a great question. So our alerting is basically twofold. It's email and SMS, and we do integrate with a couple of different ticketing systems out of the box, ServiceNow, and I think the other one is called the Sherwell or something like that. Richard, do you remember the second one?
Yeah, Sherwell, yes.
Sherwell, yeah. So those are the two that we integrate with out of the box for ticketing systems. But the system is basically a RESTful API, so we could do additional integrations if needed. But it's an excellent question. We get that one a lot.
Can I just add to that one as well, Eric? We've introduced an integration to ConnectWise PSA, which is a customer management tool used by many MSPs. So as Derek said, the whole thing is how, you know, integration, two-way integration, seamless integration to customers' existing trouble ticketing or customer handling systems. One place for all information.
Great, thanks, Richard. And yeah, you know what, I should have said that at the outset. By all means, you know, if I'm asking, you know, Derek, Richard, both of you, if you have something to add to what the other has said, please feel free to jump in at any time. Let's get our audience as much information as we can. Here's what I think. I think it's a good question from our audience too. When it comes to installation and specifically talking about proactive testing, are there agents that need to be installed for proactive testing? And you know, this question is specifically in the context of security concerns.
Yeah, and it's a very valued question. It's one that we get asked a lot of times. I think people are very conscious of the security of their information, security of their networks, firewalls, etc. So yeah, the robots are a small, lightweight Windows service that is we recommend putting in those critical locations, in critical customer locations. They are lightweight. They are lightweight service. They're fully auditable and their activities are logged. They are task-specific accounts, so they do not have any personal PII information as that. And of course, it's good to remember that we're also covered by SOC 2 Type 2 certification. So we do actually have passed the test, etc., and have a strict adherence to the security best practices. So, last point to make, we have deployed our solution in some very critical government organizations where the security requirements are extremely challenging. And again, we're more than happy. Anyone who has any questions around the security aspects of our robots, we're more than happy to share that information.
Yeah, and no doubt, security as it should is always top of mind for folks. Here's a good question, Derek. Maybe I'll throw this one to you. How quickly does it take an organization to get up and running with Vantage DX?
Yeah, that's a good question. Thank you. Yeah, usually it's typically about a week to get up and running. And once your tenant's up and running, you start seeing data almost immediately. Our bots provide, immediate telemetry into the system. Your Microsoft data that gets updated is going to be on, the cadence that Microsoft updates that data. So, a lot of the, like I was saying, showing earlier in like CQD and things like that, that data has its own interval, and we have to adhere to that same interval. Our robots get this stuff, at a much quicker interval. So.
Great, thanks, Derek. Richard, can we talk a little bit about MSPs? This is obviously the benefits are great for the enterprise IT teams, but other organizations that are using MSPs need to have access to the same kind of information and obviously want the same positive experiences through their Microsoft investments. How does that work? How easy is it for MSPs to deliver that in a multi-tenant environment?
Well, Vantage DX comes in both flavors. Obviously, there's the direct enterprise, which is just a single customer using it. But then we also have the ability to enable it, or it's fully enabled for MSPs. So an MSP could provide a platform, and within there they can provide 100% isolated or discrete. Can't think of the right word at the moment, Eric, but individual customer tenants or partitions in there, which means that the MSP could see the whole visibility of all their customers, but each customer's information, whether it's visibility of VIPs, visibility of Teams phone, meeting rooms, proactive testing, network path analysis, reports, alerts, are all just available to that individual customer of the MSP. And again, the MSP can control or allow or restrict information that each individual customer has access to. The great advantage of that is that if you have a customer that has perhaps 100 specific users, then it's much easier for an MSP to provide that as part of a focused solution looking at a small subgroup. But I would caveat by saying that it's always so valuable to cover every single user, because you want to see the interaction not only between your executives, your VIPs, you want to see the interaction with the Teams rooms devices, the Teams phone, the remote users, maybe someone's off-site in a off-site conference or that. So just remember, with Vantage DX, the big strength is the ability to see every single component when you interact with Teams.
Thanks, Richard. Is there a difference in terms of the what Vantage DX deliver, what it can do for organizations, depending on whether their users are, say, 100% virtual or 100% on-prem or a hybrid mix? Does it matter?
No, for us, it doesn't matter the slightest. You could be 100% remote, you could be 100% office, you could be hybrid, you could be in the office one day, you could be traveling, you could be on the train, the coffee shop. We don't care. If you interact with Teams, we're going to see it and be able to monitor and report, alert, etc. on it.
Yeah, and in those situations where you have an organization that's basically almost 100% remote, the robot, we always recommend you put it on a strategic location, put it on a strategic user at that point. Put it on your executive's computer or any other machine that you might identify, so you can still collect that same data.
Thanks, guys. So, Richard, I think you were the one that pointed out the idea that organizations might have a fallback option if there's a Microsoft outage. And there are others who might use Teams internally and might use a different platform, like Zoom, for instance, externally. Is there anything that you can offer, that Vantage DX offers for in situations like that?
Yeah, again, absolutely. We already cover Zoom within the Vantage DX. We take the same approach with the top level starting point and the ability to drill down into deeper detail. So yeah, not only Teams is covered, the 365 applications are proactively tested, the network path, and Zoom is there. Zoom meetings, Zoom webinars are covered, and again, you have the network path analysis with Zoom, and the roadmap is expanding that, and we're looking at other collaboration communication tools as we move forward.
Brilliant, Richard. Thank you so much. We are getting close to the end of our time today. Hopefully for our audience folks, Richard and Derek have really shown you and explained how Vantage DX does help proactively detect problems, how it can streamline troubleshooting and resolution, and of course how it proves business values. If you want more information, you want to book a demo, there is a QR code on the slide that you're looking at right now. You can get more information, get individualized walkthroughs, and explore your own specific needs or questions. Again, as I mentioned previously, you'll all be getting follow-up information on the on-demand version and any additional resources that we can offer for you. And of course, if you need to or you want to, reach out directly to Martello to set up a time to meet with them or answer any of your additional questions. With that, Richard and Derek, do you have any closing comments that you'd like to share in terms of how folks can move forward, or how they can get the most out of Vantage DX or anything else?
Oh, well, from my point of view, Eric, thank you very much for the invitation to take part in this webinar, and hopefully people who have listened in, watched this, they have many follow-up questions. As you said, Derek and I are readily available directly on the QR code, and any questions around Teams rooms, about Teams phone, proactive testing, feel free to reach out to us. We'd love to carry on the conversation.
Same here. Feel free to reach out to us, and apologize for the technical difficulties we had earlier. It happens. Of course, it's going to happen during a meeting. So.
that of course is Murphy's law. So yeah, appreciate you guys bearing with us and taking care of it and kind of ad-libbing on the fly. Again, thank you to our audience for taking time out of your busy days. We hope this was an insightful and helpful session for you, and we look forward to seeing all of you here again very soon. Thank you to everybody. Have a great rest of your day, and again, best wishes to you all.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks, everyone.